Hello, hello. Thank you for visiting once again. Today we're actually going to finally finish the ruffle dress. Um, yeah, it's actually been done for quite a while and I've had the footage sitting here, but the holidays happened and it got bumped back a few times. But now it's time, I think. I want to show you how I made the petticoat and the additional bows that adorn it and just make it look complete. So, without further ado, here we go. First thing I wanted to do was show you how I determined my measurements for the petticoat. So we measure around the waist, which is 16 centimeters, and we measure the length of the skirt, which was 18. So I got a fresh paper because I did it wrong the first time. Now we're gonna start with 16, and then I added 3 because I wanted some extra for the waistband, for clasps and things, and then I drew each of the tiers. For the first tier, I did 20 times 2 because it just was easier math, and then the next one was our 40 times 2, which made 80, and then 80 times 2, 160. Then for the height, I ended up dividing my full height by the 3 tiers and then adding seam allowance to each one. After that, we just need to get our tiers, which I like to tear fabrics that let you tear them. Woven fabrics will let you tear along, and it's very satisfying for one thing, and it also keeps your lines true as long as you're using nice fabric. There are some very, very cheap fabrics out there that you'll tear and it just goes completely sideways. That's not a good sign. This stuff, however, was very nice, and I did go ahead and hem the bottom while it was, well, now, because it's just easier to do that way. And as we learned with the ruffle skirt, we start putting the longest tier onto the second longest tier first. Start from the bottom and work your way up, and it will make your life so much simpler. And it's just a lot of the same. We've seen a lot of gathering. It's a very common thing to do, especially with the cute Lolita style fashion. You just want those gathers. Yeah, I think we kind of get the point. We've seen a lot of gathering. I'm gonna skip ahead. Alright, looking good. Now, I needed to fold over the edges of the waistband, and I ended up not being super happy with where the edges lined up, so I just picked them and resewed them. It's as simple as that. This is me kind of figuring out exactly how I wanted the edges to look. I decided to go with leaving them flush and not actually finishing that edge completely because I didn't want even more bulk in that area of the skirt. If you recall, the ruffle skirt itself has a button, which looks nice, but added some bulk. And of course it has finished edges, which also look nice, but add bulk. This was the least bulky option, and since you're not really going to see the very back of her petticoat, at least you certainly shouldn't be seeing it, I figured it would probably be okay. And now we fold the waistband over. And once you're done getting it all pinned down, you just stitch in the ditch to catch that back side. Yep, there you can see I had decided, it just wasn't worth it. Then we gotta try it on, of course, to make sure it fits. And yay, it does! And then I realized I had to get the skirt on over the petticoat. Normally it's easier just to put the skirt on first and then the petticoat under it, but you know. Then of course lacing up our little corset. Then I needed to figure out what kind of ribbons and bows I wanted to add on. One of the reasons I went the route that I did, where I kept everything separate, is that I really like modular fashion. I like that I could use each of these pieces in a completely different outfit if I really wanted to. So that's why a lot of this stuff ends up very separate. Like, I could have sewn it straight on and I did not. Oh, fair warning, if you are going to melt the ends, make sure you know what your materials are, and if you are under 18, make sure you have an adult present. I just melted the ends of those ribbons so that they wouldn't fray. You just do it for a second, and then I blow on it to make sure it's not too hot, and yeah. Definitely not something you want to do as a kid. And now I am straight up eyeballing the sizes. I did not really do measuring for this part. I knew what size I wanted it to be, and I just kind of went there. Again, I tore the fabric. For the very last corners, I tended to cut the last bits of string because otherwise they tear out and it makes your fabric fuzzier than it needs to be on the edges. Even as it is, you still have to pull some of those extra strings out. I did 2 square-like shapes and then 2 little rectangles. And then I hopped over to the sewing machine and... oh wait, first I had to make sure my rectangles were even. And then we hop over to the sewing machine and just sew along one edge so that you've got a tube. And then you turn your tube inside out. And I left the seam on the back side. For the teeny tubes, I ended up getting it's actually a special tool designed for stringing elastic through channels. but I use it for so many random things, and this is one of them. I just use the dull end to poke my one side of the tube through the middle so that I can turn it inside out. And now I am... Oh. I don't know what happened with my footage there, sorry. But we're just turning the edge of the bow in, and then I put a little clamp over it because I didn't feel like fighting with it. And we do that on both of our bows. And we get the hand sewing out. Now, you know it's not my favorite, and I really struggled with this one. I think I cut my thread too long, and it just kept getting snagged and in my way, and I was trying really hard to make the seam invisible, and it was just going quite poorly. I'll show you a little bit of the footage, but we're gonna skip past a lot of it because it's not very exciting. There we go. So that's one bow partially done. Now for the fun part. I'm gonna sew straight down the middle, and then you pull it tight and you wrap your string around a few times, and you finally start to see the cute bow shape. Then I knot my string so that it stays in that shape, and you see me wrapping this other piece around multiple times because I could not decide how I liked it best. If I liked the wide, the wide one wasn't working for me. And I'd compare it to her, and I was so on the fence about it. I decided to scrunch up the second bow while I thought. I don't know, does anyone else do that where you're unsure how you want to proceed in one area, so you just start working on something else so that your back of your brain can think about it while you're doing something less frustrating? I wasn't liking the flatness of it, so for the second bow I got some stuffing and decided to poof it up a little bit. And then I just closed the edge the same way I did the first one. Here I just tried to give you a little bit closer look at how I was stitching it. And then we skip ahead because hand stitching is even more boring to watch than it is to do. Actually, a lot of people love hand stitching. I shouldn't be mean about it. It is relaxing if you enjoy it. I just don't. And the poofy bow is what decided me on going with the half of the wraparound. I just kept it folded in half while I sewed it down. I think I lost some footage there. You can see the poofy bow is done now, but you can see how I did the skinny bow. It was just a lot more hand sewing. First I tack down one end, then I wrap it all the way around, I cut off my extra fabric, and I stitch down the other end. Pretty simple. Now, I didn't care for the flat bow on her collar, but I thought it might look super cute on the headband, so I stitched it on. And for this, I just stitched around the edges of the headband on both sides just to keep it kind of firmly in place. Since I didn't want the poofy bow to be a permanent feature on the white shirt, because I might want to pair the white shirt with something that isn't pink, I decided to stitch a safety pin onto it. It's a nice tiny safety pin I found in my stash, and I just stitched the edge of the safety pin that doesn't open to the bow, and it worked pretty good actually. And now the best part, of course, is finding out how it all looks. Sorry about getting my head in the shot there. I know there's ways to make bows look prettier. I have yet to manage to memorize it, so I just do the kind of bow that I tie my shoes with. The only thing I didn't show you off camera is that I do eventually decide to tack down the edges of the bow on the headband so that it follows the headband a little bit better. You'll see in this footage. Oh, and Kanako changed wigs. It looks cute with both wigs, honestly, but I love the white wig on her. And of course you get to see my Christmas tree in the background. Thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate having you. Please like and subscribe to see more stuff like this. Have a great one.